It's a good morning here, just after 7:32 actually, in India, still Goa. And this is Baga Beach. Now, this is like the more, let's say, famous tourist beaches here. According to the local, the taxi driver took yesterday says that that's not the best beach to go because there's lots of people, and it's very true in the sense there are lots of people. There are, I mean, it's 7:30. Well, although 7:30 in the morning, this is kind of a good time to go to the beach. So, but there are already a lot of people out here. Okay, some people fishing. There's a river going through here, and boats over there, right? I think it's a there's lots of. It used to be a Portuguese colony. Okay, so there's a cross. Well, this a Roman Catholic kind of. I don't know what it actually is over there. Exodus chapter 23, verse 10. For 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its yield. Well, this is the idea of the usage of the land. I remember as well when, as a kid growing up on the farm, that my father as well always used to. He didn't farm every single piece of land every single year, right? Some parts of some land he will. Of course, we could have two harvests in a year, two potato harvests. That stage we were more into the potatoes. Two potato harvests in a year. So he would let one piece of land lay, well, one part of land lay fallow, and another part, and he would plant, and then he would rotate in that way. So later on, we moved over to oranges and mangoes, avocados, and other trees. So understandably, when you're a tree planted on land, it doesn't lay fallow. Okay, but this is now if you like plant rice or potatoes or whatever you're going to plant. But we'll see later on this whole thing about vineyards as well. Right, so yes, the idea was that you don't exhaust the land ultimately. You don't abuse, you don't destroy the land by over planting it. You need to give the land time to recuperate, to get all the minerals kind of back, and just take out, because a lot of it goes into the fruit ultimately, or the food that you plant there, the vegetables or whatever you plant there. So, and we've seen as well earlier how it was mentioned that people were supposed to work for 6 years, and in the seventh year they are then set free. Okay, so now basically it's the same. Then same holds true for the land. You can use them, but then you need to let them rest. So this is now what they're supposed to do. But as well, here's a point. They don't say all your land for 6 years you need to work, and then on the seventh day all the land needs to lay fallow. So in the seventh year you have a one long holiday, a year holiday, when you go to the beach for a year or to the mountains for a year and travel for a year, and then you come back after a year and you start everything again. Okay, by that stage there could be a lot of other bigger problems you have. No, I mean, what it ultimately means is that you can decide which, but all. So if you take this part of your land this year in the first year and you let it lay fallow, and the rest you plant, then the next year and you let the next part lay fallow, and then the next part, So in the 7 year cycle, everything is resting. Okay. So every piece of land gets a year of not being used, but not all at the same time. This is not what the text here says. Verse 11, but the seventh year you shall let it rest and lay fallow, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field may eat. You shall do likewise with your vineyard and with your olive orchard. Okay, so yeah, the lying in the fallow, I already explained that. So let it rest in the seven. So you can stage it, right? Stage by stage. So let it. So, and what is ultimately then the reason that is given here? Right. First and foremost, it's not for the land's sake that this reason is given. Yes, the land needs to be, but the first thing is taking care of the poor. Right? We've seen people selling themselves for 6 years into but then there are others who don't need to. So they're just poor. They never. They never they could not ever get credit, right? So like we said, their credit score was non-existent because they never had enough money to get any kind of credit, right? So they don't owe anyone, but they're just poor, right? Just plain simple poor. That's part of society which, they are there. We are all kind of there, okay? And so therefore this is not now a group of people that sold themselves. They are still outside. They don't have any protection. They don't need to sell them as slaves because they don't owe anything. So they are out, no cover. So for their sake, the land ultimately needs to lay fallow. Why? Because right, so for example, you planted wheat. There's always going to be some of these days it doesn't work like that because of GM seeds and stuff. So if you throw GM seeds out there, you're not going to get any new harvest from it, right? But if you planted wheat in those days and then the seed and you sow, and some of the seed when you're collecting, it falls on this fallow ground. So what will happen is some of this is going to start growing. If you had potatoes and then some of the potatoes were left in the ground, you couldn't dig them all out, you missed here and one in there, then they're going to grow again, right? And so what now is that the poor can then go to that field and they can then gather this harvest. It's not a big harvest or anything, but there is some harvest, right? That is ultimately given. I think the lifeguard is a little bit excited about the people standing. There's a certain time of the day you're supposed to be in the water and a certain time you're not supposed to be in the water. And I don't think there's in the water part already, so the lifeguard's just getting a bit excited about, I don't know whether with fishermen, but there's other people standing in the water, maybe at them. Anyhow, so these people can then collect and they then can eat ultimately this. So it's not a huge scale collection of food, but it doesn't cost you anything. They can collect. It's the same thing in other verses. We're going to see that the first harvest, second, and then the rest you kind of leave. And then the poor can come and collect that. I remember as well, even on that. But yeah, I'll get back to it. But as a kid, you collected, harvested tomatoes, for example. Tomatoes, not potatoes, tomatoes. And then my dad allowed us to, after the harvest was over, to then go and harvest the late tomatoes. And then we could sell that to in the town or whatever, right? But that will come later. But that's the same kind of idea. Now, in this case, it's just let the land lie for a year and fallow, and so these people ultimately will have something to eat. And then as well for the beasts of the fields. Again, we see God, like earlier in this chapter, a donkey falling over, you help that donkey, you put the stuff back, you help even the one that hates you, you help. So it's about the one that hates you that you're helping, but as well, at the same time, you're helping the animal. And so here as well, there's this God taking care of, ultimately here, the animals, the beasts of the field, so that they can eat as well. Right? So it's not just for the people, but the beasts of the field. And we're not speaking of the lions and stuff like that, because lions don't eat the leftover potatoes or wheat or whatever is going to be there. Other thing that need as well, the same thing needs to happen to their vineyards and the olive orchards. So vineyards, olive orchards, you're not going to dig them up after 6 years and let the land follow or anything like that. Right? This is they keep on being in the land, right? But you don't harvest. That's sixth year is you don't harvest. Seventh year that is you don't harvest the wine. So that these people can actually gather grapes and they can actually make some wine for themselves, which they can then keep for a bit. And the olive orchard, oil, right? Oil, it's still till today so important for the people. The idea of for the Palestinians. I mean, there's now the olive harvesting time, and it's so important for them. It's such a big part of their culture that people are trying to stop them from harvesting it. But anyhow, that's not now so much important. But here as well, for them, olive orchards, so that they can go collect those olives that in that 7th year, and that they can make some oil for them, so that and oil can last a while, right? So that they have something as well to take, what they can take care of.